If I were to sit down with you and say that one of the most effective interventions to rapidly improve leg strength in older adults doesn't come from a prescription, nor from a gym program, but rather from a single, strategic food consumed at the right time, you might be skeptical. And that's entirely reasonable. But emerging research in the field of nutritional neurobiology has demonstrated just that. A simple dietary adjustment, one that's accessible, affordable, and evidence-backed, can initiate meaningful changes in neuromuscular function within a 12-hour window. Today, we're not talking about hypothetical mechanisms. We're discussing clinically observed improvements in mitochondrial activation, muscle protein synthesis, and motor neuron signaling, documented in peer-reviewed studies, particularly among individuals over the age of 50. This episode is designed to walk you through the precise biochemical pathways, the nutritional triggers, and the practical application of one specific food that supports lower body function, particularly in aging populations where mobility, balance, and independence are at risk. To be clear, this is not about cosmetic muscle tone or aesthetic gains. This is about preserving autonomy, about safeguarding the ability to rise from a chair, ascend a staircase, and maintain equilibrium on uneven ground. Because when leg strength declines, the consequences extend far beyond physical appearance. It affects fall risk, confidence, metabolic stability, and even life expectancy. For decades, the prevailing belief has been that muscle atrophy is an inevitable result of aging. But that paradigm is shifting. The latest neuroscience tells a different story. Muscle may still be structurally intact, but functionally disconnected due to degradation in neuromuscular signaling. The exciting part is this: reconnection is possible. And rapid. Under the right nutritional and circadian conditions, muscle responsiveness can begin to return within hours, not weeks. In this session, we will explore the underlying cause of age-related leg weakness and why it's often misattributed to aging itself, the role of neurotransmitters like acetylcholine and how certain nutrients accelerate their restoration, the importance of leucine-rich protein and how timing affects its anabolic impact, how foods like beetroot and dark leafy greens support mitochondrial function and vascular flow, and finally, how to structure these elements into a science-based protocol that you can apply starting tomorrow morning. Let's begin by challenging the most persistent myth in geriatric health: that leg weakness is just a part of growing old. Because as you'll soon learn, it's not your age that determines your decline. It's your biology, and biology can be influenced. 1. Understanding neuromuscular disconnection. For many years, clinicians and patients alike assumed that age-related muscle loss was purely the result of atrophy, meaning a gradual shrinking of muscle tissue due to disuse or hormonal decline. However, contemporary neuroscience paints a far more nuanced and optimistic picture. Recent findings indicate that in many older adults, the muscle fibers themselves are not significantly deteriorated. Rather, they're functionally dormant, not receiving the necessary electrical and chemical signals from the central nervous system. This phenomenon is known as neuromuscular disconnection. In practical terms, it means that your legs may still have muscular capacity, but without proper input from the motor neurons in your spinal cord and brain, those muscles cannot activate efficiently. It's not muscle that has vanished, it's the command system that has gone offline. Let's briefly explore what happens at the cellular level. Every voluntary movement begins in the motor cortex of the brain. The command signal then travels down the spinal cord, through motor neurons, and reaches the neuromuscular junction, where it's transmitted to the muscle via the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. However, as early as the 4th decade of life, some individuals begin to experience loss or dysfunction in those motor neurons, particularly the ones connected to the lower limbs. This degradation reduces the amplitude and frequency of the electrical signals, which leads to sluggish, delayed, or absent muscle response. You may feel this as a sudden sense of instability when standing, difficulty rising from a chair, early fatigue when climbing stairs, even if your muscles feel fine at rest. These are not just signs of aging. They are signs of interrupted neural circuitry. In clinical practice, I've seen numerous cases where patients report profound leg weakness, but electromyographic testing reveals intact muscle tissue. Instead, what we observe is reduced neuromuscular efficiency, particularly in transmission speed and contractile force. The good news is this: if the muscle isn't dead and the problem lies in communication, then we can restore that communication. Through targeted nutritional inputs supported by light activity and timing, the neuromuscular junction can reignite, often within hours. That's what this protocol is designed to do. Not to build new muscle out of nowhere, but to re-engage the muscle you already possess. 2. Restoring signal quality through nutrition. To reactivate dormant muscles, one must first re-establish clear, consistent communication between the nervous system and the muscle fibers. The key player in this process is a molecule called acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter, a chemical messenger that transmits electrical commands from the nervous system to the muscular system. When you decide to move, whether it's standing up, shifting your weight, or lifting your foot, acetylcholine is released at the neuromuscular junction. It binds to receptors on your muscle cells and initiates contraction. Without adequate acetylcholine, these messages are lost or delayed. The result? Muscles misfire, respond too slowly, or fail to engage altogether. This is particularly concerning for older adults, as research shows that both acetylcholine levels and receptor sensitivity decline with age, especially in the large motor units of the lower body. Fortunately, acetylcholine is synthesized from a specific dietary nutrient, choline. Choline serves as the essential building block for acetylcholine production, and it's one of the most underconsumed nutrients among older populations. A 2012 review in the journal Nutrients emphasized that increasing choline intake can lead to enhanced acetylcholine production within 6 to 12 hours, particularly when the nervous system is under demand, such as during walking or balance-related activity. The highest concentration of choline in the human diet is found in egg yolks. 2 whole eggs provide more than 300 milligrams of choline, sufficient to significantly support acetylcholine synthesis. Other sources include quinoa, soybeans, Brussels sprouts, organ meats such as liver. However, eggs remain the most bioavailable and efficient source. Acetylcholine levels are at their lowest in the early morning, following an overnight fast. This makes the first hour after waking an optimal window to deliver choline to the nervous system. Pairing a choline-rich breakfast such as 2 whole eggs, with a short session of light movement e.g. walking, stretching, or stair climbing, significantly enhances acetylcholine turnover. This pairing works synergistically. Movement stimulates demand for neuromuscular signaling. Choline supplies the raw material for that signal. It's a precise intervention, targeting the neurochemical bottleneck that limits muscle response, not just trying to increase muscle size or strength blindly. In my clinical observation, patients who began their day with a combination of eggs, leafy greens, and light aerobic activity consistently reported more confident steps, greater control during transitions such as sitting to standing, a marked decrease in hesitation or leg drag during walking. These effects were often noticeable by day 2 or 3, particularly in those with mild to moderate weakness. And for many, this early improvement was enough to reinforce long-term adherence to the protocol. Because when the body responds quickly, the mind regains hope. 3. Leucine and the anabolic switch. While re-establishing neuromuscular signaling is essential, restoring strength requires more than communication. The muscles must also rebuild and regenerate. And to do that, the body requires a specific anabolic signal, a molecular cue that says, it's time to grow. This signal is mediated by an amino acid called leucine. Leucine is one of the 3 branched-chain amino acids, BCAAs, and unlike many nutrients, it does not serve merely as fuel. It functions as a regulatory molecule, activating a key intracellular pathway known as mTOR, mammalian target of rapamycin. mTOR is the central control tower for muscle protein synthesis. When mTOR is activated, your cells begin to repair and build muscle tissue. When it's inactive, that repair process is delayed or completely bypassed. Among all the amino acids, leucine has been shown to be the most potent activator of mTOR. Research published in the Journal of Nutrition, 2011, demonstrated that even a single meal containing sufficient leucine was capable of significantly increasing muscle protein synthesis in older adults, despite age-related anabolic resistance. That last term, anabolic resistance, is critical. As we age, our muscles become less sensitive to the usual anabolic signals. That means even when older individuals consume adequate protein, the body may not respond effectively unless that protein contains enough leucine. Leucine effectively acts as the key to unlock the muscle-building machinery. Without it, the door remains shut. With it, the system activates, even in the aging body. To activate the mTOR pathway, research suggests a minimum threshold of 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine per meal. This typically translates to 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein, particularly from animal-based sources. Best natural sources of leucine include whey protein isolate, eggs, especially whites, lean poultry and beef, fish and dairy, soy protein isolate, 4 plant-based options, Whey protein in particular provides leucine in a highly bioavailable, rapidly absorbed format. That's why it's commonly used in both clinical nutrition and athletic performance programs, because it works fast. For individuals seeking rapid recovery of leg strength, a morning dose of whey isolate can be incredibly effective, especially when consumed within 60 minutes of light physical activity. Here's where the synergy becomes powerful. When leucine is paired with choline-rich foods, like eggs, the result is a dual mechanism. Leucine activates mTOR for structural rebuilding. Choline restores acetylcholine for neurological activation. This combination enhances not just muscle quantity, but muscle functionality. You're not just building tissue. You're re-establishing its connection to your brain. This is the biological foundation of functional strength, especially in the lower limbs. For nitric oxide and blood flow, the forgotten pathway. Even with optimal signaling and sufficient building blocks, muscles cannot repair or respond without adequate vascular support. Put simply, if blood doesn't reach the muscle, nutrients can't either. This is particularly critical for the lower limbs, where blood has to travel the greatest distance from the heart. In older adults, the arteries and capillaries supplying the legs can become less flexible, more constricted, and slower to respond to demand. This leads to impaired oxygen delivery, reduced nutrient availability, and a delay in metabolic waste removal. Clinically, this presents as a heavy, dragging sensation in the legs, early onset fatigue with walking, cold extremities despite room temperature. These symptoms are not purely muscular, they reflect vascular insufficiency. The molecule responsible for modulating vascular tone is nitric oxide, NO. Nitric oxide is produced in the endothelial cells lining your blood vessels. Its primary role is to signal the relaxation of smooth muscle, allowing blood vessels to widen, a process called vasodilation. Wider vessels mean increased blood flow and increased delivery of nutrients to working muscles. However, nitric oxide production declines with age, especially in sedentary individuals or those consuming low-nitrate diets. That's where nutrition comes in. Beets, especially raw or juiced, are rich in dietary nitrates, which your body converts into nitric oxide via a well-established metabolic pathway. A 2015 study published in the Journal of Applied Physiology demonstrated that older adults who consumed beetroot juice exhibited measurable improvements in leg power within 2 to 3 hours, especially in the fast-twitch muscle fibers that are responsible for balance and rapid movement. Beets provide a natural, safe, and rapid means of increasing vascular responsiveness, without the side effects associated with pharmacologic vasodilators. Suggested protocol: consume 250 to 300 milliliters of beetroot juice approximately 90 minutes before physical activity. Alternatively, eat 1 to 2 small beets, grated raw or lightly roasted. Pairing this with light aerobic movement, like walking, cycling, or stair climbing, further amplifies nitric oxide release, creating a positive feedback loop between circulation and motion. Some individuals express concern about the natural sugars in beetroot. However, the glycemic load is moderate and offset by its vasodilatory and antioxidant benefits, especially when consumed before activity. To moderate any glucose response, pair beetroot with a source of protein or fiber, such as eggs, Greek yogurt, or a handful of seeds. Avoid adding refined sugars or high fructose fruits to beet juice blends. This ensures that nitric oxide benefits are preserved, without unwanted metabolic spikes. In our clinic, patients who combine beetroot intake with structured walking routines often reported easier Navigation, reduced leg heaviness, faster recovery post-activity. For many, beetroot became a pre-walk ritual, like fueling the body before movement. It's not just nutrition. It's vascular medicine in food form. 5. Chronic inflammation, the invisible saboteur. You may not feel it. You may not see it. But chronic low-grade inflammation may be the single most underdiagnosed contributor to progressive leg weakness in older adults. Unlike acute inflammation, which is visible, painful, and short-lived, chronic inflammation operates in the background, often for years. It generates mild elevations in immune signaling molecules known as cytokines, which interfere with muscle regeneration, impair mitochondrial function, and promote neuronal degradation. In clinical labs, we measure markers such as C-reactive protein, CRP, interleukin-6, IL-6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, TNF-alpha. Elevated levels of these are strongly associated with reduced leg strength, slower gait speed, and higher fall risk in older populations, even among those with adequate caloric intake and exercise. Here's how chronic inflammation affects muscular function. It inhibits satellite cell activation, slowing down muscle repair. It disrupts mTOR signaling, reducing protein synthesis. It impairs acetylcholine receptor sensitivity, weakening neuromuscular transmission. It damages endothelial cells, reducing nitric oxide output and impairing circulation. In effect, it attacks every layer of the strength equation, from signal to structure to supply. It's the biological equivalent of trying to grow a tree in polluted soil. Fortunately, the body is highly responsive to dietary anti-inflammatory compounds, particularly those found in dark leafy greens and high polyphenol vegetables. Key compounds include quercetin, found in kale and mustard greens, blocks IL-6 and TNF-alpha. Magnesium, prevalent in spinach and chard, regulates immune activity. Chlorophyll, detoxifies pro-inflammatory mediators. Nitrate compounds, dual function, circulation and inflammation reduction. A 2019 study published in Frontiers in Pharmacology showed that daily intake of polyphenol-rich greens, when paired with light physical activity, significantly reduced systemic inflammation markers within 2 to 4 weeks. To leverage this effect, I recommend including at least 1 cup of cooked leafy greens daily, ideally in your first meal of the day. Why the first meal? Because early-day anti-inflammatory intake can influence circadian immune regulation, reducing morning cytokine peaks and stabilizing hormonal rhythms. Suggested combinations: sautéed kale with eggs and olive oil, spinach plus avocado plus lemon juice salad, mustard greens stir-fried with tofu. To optimize nutrient absorption, pair with a healthy fat such as avocado, olive oil, or walnuts. A splash of acid, lemon juice or apple cider vinegar to enhance mineral uptake. Unlike the near-immediate impact of beetroot or leucine, anti-inflammatory dietary changes may take several days to weeks to manifest physically. However, patients often notice more stable energy, reduced soreness after walking, improved coordination and reaction time. Think of it as clearing the static from your internal communication channels. Once the inflammation subsides, the true potential of your muscles can emerge. 6. Meal timing and circadian synchronization. In the context of muscle preservation and restoration, timing is not just a scheduling preference. It is a biological determinant. Every meal, particularly those containing protein, initiates a cascade known as muscle protein synthesis, MPS. This is the process by which your body repairs existing muscle tissue and builds new fibers. However, aging muscles respond less robustly to these signals. This phenomenon, as mentioned earlier, is known as anabolic resistance. In simple terms, even if you consume sufficient protein, the strength of the signal weakens with age, unless supported by strategic timing and physical activity. Many older adults unknowingly concentrate their protein intake into a single meal, typically dinner. But data from the University of Texas, 2014, demonstrates that evenly distributing protein across 3 meals yields 25% greater total muscle protein synthesis than skewing it toward evening. The logic is straightforward. Each meal acts as an independent anabolic stimulus. Multiple small signals are more effective than a single large one. The body cannot fully utilize 30-40 g of protein in one sitting. Excess is oxidized, not stored. Thus, a 30-30-30 approach, grams of protein per meal, is more biologically effective than October 20/60 distribution. There's also what we call the anabolic window, a 30 to 60 minute period post-exercise when muscle tissue is most receptive to amino acid uptake. This window becomes particularly valuable in aging individuals. To maximize it, engage in light activity, walking, stretching, resistance band exercises. Within 45 minutes, consume 25-30 g of high leucine protein. This can dramatically enhance protein utilization efficiency, even in the presence of anabolic resistance. In my clinical setting, elderly patients who applied this method showed more rapid strength improvements, particularly in stair climb and chair stand performance tests. Here's what an ideal protein timing day looks like. Small Blue Diamond breakfast within 1 hour of waking. 2 eggs plus 1 scoop whey isolate plus sautéed greens. Small Blue Diamond lunch post-walk. Grilled fish plus lentils plus mixed greens plus olive oil. Small Blue Diamond dinner, early, not overloaded. Tofu or poultry plus quinoa plus steamed vegetables. Avoid stacking protein at night. Not only is it less efficiently used, but it may also interfere with sleep quality due to increased metabolic load. When you eat is a signal to your biology. It informs your hormonal axis, digestive enzyme timing, neuromuscular readiness, recovery rhythm. Well-timed meals do more than nourish. They entrain your circadian clock to perform better, with greater metabolic efficiency and muscular response. It's not just what's on the plate. It's when the plate hits the table. Final takeaway and daily habit for leg restoration. At this point, you've been introduced to some of the most up-to-date, evidence-based and clinically applicable strategies for restoring leg strength, not in months but in a matter of hours to days. Let's briefly consolidate the key mechanisms we've covered. DNA biological summary. Neuromuscular reconnection begins with adequate choline and acetylcholine synthesis. Anabolic recovery is triggered by leucine through mTOR pathway activation. Circulatory enhancement is mediated by nitric oxide, fueled by dietary nitrates, especially from beetroot. Inflammation modulation is achievable through dark leafy greens and polyphenol. Protein timing and distribution help overcome anabolic resistance and resensitize aging muscle. Each of these systems can be influenced nutritionally, strategically, without the need for pharmaceuticals or extreme interventions. If you were to carry forward only one practice from this presentation, let it be this. Sun within the first hour of waking each morning, engage in light movement and consume a leucine and choline-rich breakfast. For example, a 15-minute walk followed by 2 whole eggs, 1 scoop of whey isolate, a cup of sautéed spinach in olive oil, half a beet, raw or roasted. This 20 to 30-minute ritual may seem simple, but it synchronizes neural signaling, vascular function, and muscle regeneration. It sets the tone not just for the day but for the decade ahead. You are not powerless against aging. Your legs are not broken. They are waiting for input, for activation, for attention. This isn't about vanity or youth. This is about dignity, safety, and independence. Every step regained is a reclaiming of your identity. You do not need to be perfect. You only need to be persistent. If this message helped you see your body and your potential in a new light, please subscribe to Simple Health for more clinically informed, research-backed wellness strategies tailored for aging adults. Thumbs up like this video if it gave you tools worth trying. Memo and leave a comment. We'd love to hear how you're applying these strategies to regain strength in your life or the life of someone you care for. Remember, strength is not lost. It's often just uninvited. Let's bring it back together.